to B5 Part 2, Current and Circuits. We will look at some of these first standards that come up. Some of them we've seen in the first video, but I want to review some of those and also take a look at EMF, electromotive force, and how some of these energy sources work with chemical cells and solar cells, and circuit diagrams. Let's get started. EMF, electromotive force. So this refers to the force that creates electric force within a circuit. So circuits would have some sort of electrical source, such as a battery, that provides voltage. We learned in the first video that voltage is the energy per charge, or joules per coulomb. Joules per coulomb we learned about. And the EMF tells us the maximum voltage that a circuit possesses, right? There might, as we're going to see, as you go around, or as a charge goes around a circuit, it might have a voltage drop due to resistors or resistance. And we will take a look at that in some of the questions in this video. Let's get started with actually one question with EMF calculations that you might see on test day. So here they tell us a battery has a EMF of 4 volts and a charge of, which supplies 2 coulombs of charge. How much energy does the battery transfer to maintain this flow? So what do we know? Also from the earlier videos, also from the data booklet, we know that voltage is equal to energy or work per charge. In this case, we have 4 volts, which creates, and so a battery has an EMF of 4 volts and supplies 2 coulombs of charge. How much energy does the battery transfer to maintain the flow? So we can see here that energy must equal 8 joules, right? So, and then it asks us, what is the voltage across a resistor if it dissipates 30 joules of heat while a current of 3 amp, right? So different question, but same idea, right? Working on the same idea of voltage and calculations. So we have 30 joules of heat while a current of 3 amperes flows for 5 seconds. How do we answer this? So we're going to look to the formula guide, the data booklet, and we're going to see that power is equal to current times voltage. Let's just make sure we see that right there. Power is equal to current times voltage. How will that help us to answer this question? What is the voltage across a resistor if it dissipates 30 joules of heat? So we have this total energy, we have time, and we have amperes. So with the equation we see here, we don't directly have we don't have anywhere to plug in these numbers. But if we think about it, power is to get from power to total energy to 30 joules, we multiply power by time. So based on this equation, based on the given equation, the power is equal to current times volt. Power times time, which is equal to total energy, which in this case is 30 joules. I have to tell you it's 30 joules. The total energy is 30 joules. That's going to be equal to the current, which is 3 amps, times voltage, that's what we're looking for, times time, which is 5 seconds. 3 times 5 gives us, right? So if you do some of the basic algebra, you should see that in this case, let us see, 3 times 5 is 15. So we have volts, or the number of volts must be equal to 5 times 3 is 15, 3 divided by 15, or 2 volts. So the voltage must be 2 volts, given that it is dissipating 30 joules of heat in 5 seconds with a current of 3 amperes. So things to think about, right? That equation is not directly given to you, but you could derive this equation from power is equal to current times voltage. A circuit diagram. A battery supplies 18 volts to a circuit. So so how do we draw circuit diagrams? Well, let's draw initially the source of electromotive force, the battery. Traditionally, it looks like this, where this is the positive line, the longer line, the negative line below. And this is 18 volts, 18 volt battery. And then it says that the circuit has 1 ohm of internal resistance. So let's draw that over there. What is internal resistance, right? So that is resistance that is inherent to the circuit, right? So you're going to have resistance in everything, no matter how good a conductor, right? So the nature of the battery might have resistance. So here they're telling you internal resistance, treat it as 1 ohm of resistance. And then, in addition, we have 2 ohms of external resistance, right? So that might be a resistor of some kind, right? So that could be any other component that adds on resistance. So we have 1 ohm. Let me make that. So here's my external resistance, 2 ohms. 1 ohm was the internal resistance, and we represented it like by these rectangles on the circuit diagram. The battery I represented there as well, 18 volts. That's our circuit diagram. And based on this, how much current will flow? What's the relevant equation? The relevant equation we're going to see is E is equal to the current times external resistance plus internal resistance. Let's take a look. That you can see over here. E is equal to, right, the electromotive force is equal to the current times the external plus internal resistance. We're going to see other ways to calculate when we're dealing with series circuits and parallel circuits in subsequent videos, but for now, where we have a straightforward circuit of internal and external resistance, this is the relevant formula, which is what we used. Plugging in how much current will flow. Well, we know that there's 18 volts is equal to the current times 2 plus 1, or 3 ohms. Current, therefore, is equal to 6 amperes. Right, 6 amperes. Straightforward. Part C. Find the potential drop, right, across this resistor. How much potential drop are we going to have? And we could figure out the potential drop by using the formula that the voltage across any resistance is the resistance times the current. So across that 2 ohms, what's going to happen? We're going to have, right, so, well, we know that there's 6 amperes are going around that circuit. So that's 6. Okay. The resistance across the 2 ohm resistor is 2 ohms. 2 ohms. And therefore, the voltage drop is going to be 12 volts, right? 12 volt, there'll be a 12 volt drop, or a potential difference of 12 volts as the current crosses that resistor. Right, so here we had a simple circuit diagram, and we did some basic calculations with external and internal resistance. Next up, let's look at the standard for chemical versus solar cells. Actually, we'll start with chemical and then move on to solar. So chemical cells, that is, right, so traditionally the most common chemical cell that we might be able to think of is the battery, right? So batteries have chemicals which create electric currents. They have negative and positive electrodes. I'm not sure if we'll need to know that, but what we do need to know is that these chemical reactions create a current of electrons going around in a circuit. Another method to create electricity from a source would be solar cells. And you could see here in the diagram that we should put in your notes that solar cells, how do they work? Right, right. We have semiconductor material where the solar light energy, photons, strikes the solar cell. The energy excites the electrons, creating what we see here, positively charged holes. And right, the cell's structure will create a potential difference as the electrons are excited, driving, creating an electric current. One of the important things I want you to recognize here is that an electric current is created without any sort of generator, right? So in other sources of electric energy, maybe a wind turbine or a nuclear plant, the energy, the electric energy, is really created by, or there's a number of steps that are creating the electric energy. It's not directly created from the wind, but here with solar energy, the photons directly create a electric current. Chemical cells versus solar cells, right? So chemical cells rely on the chemical energy, work in various lighting conditions, right? So chemical cells, batteries are not dependent on the amount of light. but they might have limited lifespan due to chemical depletion. Solar cells have longer maintenance, but they're more dependent on access to solar light, photons. And based on what we discussed, which type of power station generates electrical energy without primarily relying on turbines or generators? And as I wanted you to know, the answer is C, right? They've asked similar questions before, so I reworded it and had it and tested the idea that they wanted you to know was that one of the characteristics of solar cells is that they create electrical energy, currents, in this case not in the same way that wind turbines or fossil fuels or nuclear energy works. In this case, solar cells do not need turbines or generators, generally speaking. So we reached the end of this video, some basic calculations, some basic ideas about chemical versus solar cells. And we'll move on to more material from the subtopic in part 3. So that is the conclusion of part 2. I'll see everybody in part 3.